All right. Hi everyone. These are the video notes for the module number 2 of the week number 3, and it's going to be about critically evaluating a study. So we're going to see some recommendations to evaluate the study. Of course, that doesn't mean we can have only those. We can have even more, but those are the ones that we have to cover according to the course. So first. If you go to Blackboard in the module overview, right, you will have some complementary files. If you see there are there you have a file with the 12 components in blank, and the 12 components annotated. I mean, like what is every component about? So here I have this component here. So I'm going to read the components. I'm going to read. I'm going to explain what each of them is about, and actually it's annotated here. But if I want to add something, I will do it. And then I'm going to analyze. I'm going to respond to some questions of the in the assignment from Achieve. Right? Okay, it's going to be only one assignment where you will have to respond to these components, all right, or these recommendations about one article that is posted on Blackboard. Right? So I'm going to respond to some questions there. That okay? It's going to be the same question. So you can see the questions here and you can respond them there on Achieve if you haven't done it. So first, all right. So here it says critically evaluating the strengths and weaknesses of a study. First, the first one is describe the main reason for the study. Describe the main reason for the study. Usually, this is going to be given in the topic, in the title of the study. With that, it's very likely that you're going to know what the study is about. Yeah. Now, number two, what type of study is it? Well, I told you before that here we have essentially in statistics two main kind of studies: random experiment. I know it says experiment only here, and observational. Be, between among those two, we can have many kind of studies, but essentially we can say that the main two biggest studies are those: random experiment and observational studies. For the random experiment, if we are assigning treatments randomly, for sure we're talking about a random experiment. Observational, usually we observe, we don't assign treatments randomly, or we do not manipulate. Number three, identify the explanatory variable and response variable. And here we have some categories. I mean, numerical variable. Numerical usually is a number. And categorical is when you have groups or several groups or categories for your for your outcomes of the variable. But one important key here is when you if you think that your variable is numerical, is that you can compute things like the average, the mean, quartiles, median. I know we haven't seen those concepts, but we're going to cover them here in the course. When you can do that for the numerical, I mean, for your numbers in your variable, then for sure it's a numerical variable. I mean, when you can do it, then that makes sense, right? I mean, it has a context of that makes sense for you, because sometimes some categorical variables, they're going to be labeled, or the outcomes, they're going to be labeled by numbers, with numbers, but that doesn't mean that it's numerical. Some weird cases like that you're going to find, but categories are essentially groups, right? For example, color is a categorical variable because you have red, black. Ethnicity, all right, Caucasian, um, black, white, Latino, and so on. Okay. Number four, describe the population. This is important. who can the result be extended out to? I mean, what is the extent of the results? I mean, even when we have some significant effects, right, given the study, to what population can be extended? So by reading and taking into account how the sample was taken, usually we can respond to that question. What type of sampling was used? A lot of volunteer sampling occurs, especially with medical studies. So this is very important. When you have a study that has to do with medical or with medical reasons, it's very likely that the sampling was volunteer. And in that case, that always going to be biased, or it's going to have some kind of bias to that, because you're not sampling the whole population. Actually, you are taking into account only people who want to participate. Yeah, who want to participate. So, but well, usually that happens here. Number 6, are there any potential sources of bias in the sample? Think about groups that were excluded either accidentally or on purpose. For example, here, volunteer samples are always biased. Well, yeah, we can say that. Yeah, we're considering here that volunteer samples are always biased. Yeah, but anyway, we do a randomization correctly, and the sample is representative, large enough, random, we can avoid that. Data collection, what is study prospective or retrospective? I think this applies more to observational studies. Prospective is in the future, got the participant and then measure the data. For example, record what you'll eat for breakfast tomorrow. Retrospective is in the past, data point already occurred, then put the participant in the study. What did you eat for breakfast yesterday? So I think, if I'm not wrong, that most of the random access experiments, right, they're going to be prospective, right, because you try to control things and observe what's happening in the future. I think the only case when we can have a retrospective is when we have an observational study, right? And usually it has to do with asking questions to the participants. Number 8, were the subjects randomized to treatments? Remember that treatments is another word to say like explanatory variables or combinations or sub-explanatory variables. Only applies if it is an experiment. Look for the keywords like blocks or simple random sample. If you see these words, it's very likely that the treatments were randomized. What results are presented? Descriptive statistics here, they can be mean, median, standard deviation, gradients, minimum, maximum, quartiles. Yeah, I know I haven't talked about them here in the course yet, but we're going to do it. And inferential statistics, again, so are some techniques or methods that we're going to cover some of them here in the course. For example, hypothesis test, p-value, confidence interval, chi-squared, proportion test, ANOVA, many things like that. Where we are going to see this, some of this in the course as well. By now, you don't worry if you don't understand them exactly. Don't worry about that. Only if you see that they're mentioned, then take that into account so you can write them down here. Number 10, are there any confounding or lurking variables that could impact the results? Well, confounding remember, confounding is when we say that two variables are confounded when we cannot distinguish the effects of two variables, for example, two explanatory variables or two treatments. We cannot distinguish the effects on the response variable. The point is that when we have two confounded variables, usually we care about them. For example, we can have two different explanatory variables or two different treatments, right? So our concern is about them. But the lurking variable usually is something that you are not interested in. But anyway, it's going to be there. So, but that's why it says here, lurking variable not measured in the study. Number 10, what were the final conclusions? Usually, fortunately, many studies, they have the conclusions from the authors of the study. So you can find that most of the times quick. Reflection, what aspects of the study could be improved or included for the next time? That's going to be your personal opinion, right? Your personal opinion, and if you have more experience, it can be more considered like a professional opinion. All right. So we are going to analyze this. the article that is the herpes vaccine article. These questions again are from the homework on a chip, right? I'm going to respond only to some of them. I think there are 11 questions, so I think I have here 6. So they're going to be exactly the same answer. So you will have the answers. If you're watching this video, you will have the answers, right? But I think most of them are not very complicated. But first, the article. You will have to read the article. If you go to Blackboard, to the module number 2, you see here, you go to Blackboard to the module number 2, you have several files. But one of the files here is in the table of contents, the homework number 2 article. So there you have, you download this, a PDF file, and there you have it. It's this one. Efficacy results of a trial of a herpes simplex vaccine. And now it has 10 pages, right? So you want to read all of this. Maybe some of you are interested in this kind of subject or this kind of topics. You can read it all of them if you want. Most of the times to respond many of the questions is not going to be necessary, but anyway, I recommend if you're going to do an analysis, try to read everything in detail. In this case, we have the information, background to previous studies about herpes simplex virus type, subunit vaccine containing leukoprotein in HSV discordant couples reveals 73% and 74% efficacy against genital disease in women who were negative for both. Methods, we conducted a randomized double-blind. Oh, this is an interesting information. It was a double-blind study. Remember that? When neither the participants nor the person applying the treatments, they know what kind of treatment they were applying. Well, so you have these methods. Now that you have the results, you can read all of this and the conclusions. I think for the question that I'm going to respond, this is enough if we have read only this. So go to the questions, right? Here it says, read herpes vaccine article and answer the 12 components. Again, I have only some of the questions here, so you will have to do the other ones. Number 1, what is the main reason for the study? And again, as I mentioned before, usually it's going to be given in the title. Efficacy results of a trial. So I think the answer is going to be to see if the herpes, to cure genital herpes, evaluate the efficacy. So it is the third one, right? This one. Evaluate the efficacy of a vaccine to control herpes. Next one. What is a study prospective or retrospective? All right. Well, we're going to see later that this is around, well, we saw before, this is a randomized experiment. So if it is a randomized experiment, it was prospective, yeah, because we manipulate things so that we can see what happens in the future. To be honest, I don't remember a random experiment, and I'm right now to my mind, I don't see any example of that, but maybe there is one. I mean, a random experiment that could be retrospective, but so I think most of them are going to be prospective. So prospective is the answer. What type of study was conducted? Observational case, meta-analysis, we haven't talked about that. Observational cohort study or randomized control experiment. Obviously, is the randomized control study. Are there any confounding or lurking variables that could impact the result of the study? And there you have some of them here for possible number of sexual partners, socioeconomic status. Then we have the option. This was a random experiment that the confounding effect should not, right? Should not be present, but maybe they are. Yeah, I don't think that they disappear completely, but I would say that due to randomization, they are minimized to the minimum, right? So anyway, the answer from the book is this one. So the book's assuming that no, they shouldn't be present, right? But they could be, right? They shouldn't, but maybe they're going to be there. But yeah, the purpose of random experiment is that we avoid these effects as much as possible if the experiment was done correctly. This one, identify the explanatory variable and whether it is quantitative, numerical, or qualitative. I think the explanatory variable was this one, vaccine type, and it was qualitative. Finally, the last answer that I have, the last question that I have here, again, all of these questions are the same as the ones in the homework number 2 from the module 2 on the homework from Achieve. But there are some questions are missing, right? I think there are 11 and I chose only 6 here. Question is, are there any potential sources of bias in the sampling methods? Yes, because some of the women experience side effects. So no, everyone who participated used birth control. No, the treatments were randomly assigned to the subjects. We have the option, yes, it was a voluntary sample, which is always biased. Yeah, we are assuming that voluntary samples are always biased, okay? So the answer is yes. Volunteer samples, this kind of studies that they have to do with medical issues. We're going to assume that, well, most of the times they use a volunteer sample. So we will assume that they are biased. All right. And I think that's all by now. Yeah. So yeah, this was, I think, a quick video. Anyway, if you have any question about the other questions from the homework Achieve, let me know, right? You can send me an email or you can go to my schedule office hours. See you later.